All right, good.
Good afternoon. My name is José Cavazos. I'm a clinician scientist in epilepsy. I am a professor in neurology, pharmacology, and physiology at the University of Texas Health Sciences Center in San Antonio. Now, I work at University Hospital, which is in the middle, where we have our epilepsy center. I work at the VA, where I have, again, see patients 1 day a week. I have a full clinic with 1,200 patients that I see and I'm responsible for. I also am a professor and I teach at the medical school, which is the other institution. So I have built a group of individuals who take care of epilepsy, and I do research in epilepsy. And what I'm here today to tell you about is how careers as clinician scientists develop, evolve. I'm going to use myself as an example. I also going to give you statistics and general information from the AAMC about what is the class of applicants that apply to medical schools where these 110 programs, MD PhD programs exist, and what is the final outcome of these programs. So let me start by saying, and this is the first set of slides are from the AAMC, from the Association of MD PhD Directors, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about several of these components. The first piece is that MDs, what they do is, if there are multiple ways to become a biomedical scientist, you can become an MD, do research training during your fellowship, and you eventually might have the skills for a PhD equivalent, and then you can compete with MD PhDs to do research. PhDs, on the other hand, conduct research typically in basic science laboratories, and some of them may have some clinical translational science training that allows them to take research in the bench to make discoveries in patients and take inspiration in patients and develop better research to solve humankind's health problems. The advantage of an MD PhD program is that the two things are combined and the careers are integrated. They are mentored by a group of individuals who are clinician scientists like myself. They save you time, they save you money, because an MD PhD program in general, they are able to pay for your medical school and your graduate school. Now, the area that we do is this interface between science and medicine. And as you know, just looking at PubMed, just looking at journals, science is exploding. There's tremendous amount of science that happens every day. In medicine, we also have an explosion of information. So the people who are able to do this translation, this intersection between science and medicine, are the medical school faculty of the future. In a sense, MD PhDs. We are raised with the culture of science, we are raised with the culture of medicine, and we are able to understand both sides and translate these discoveries into clinical medicine much more effectively. Now, there are a little over 110 MD PhD programs affiliated with medical schools. If you look at the AAMC website, you can find that there are tables that tell you what is the distribution and the size of the MD PhD programs in different places in the country. About 45 programs are partially supported, about 20% of their slots, by an institutional training grant from one of the NIH institutes, and it is known as MSTP. There are several MSTP programs here in California, and there are several in Texas. Now, In addition to them, there are NIH F30 awards. Now, the difference for this is that these are individual MD, PhD awards to a particular person. My students who have an F30 award, they are the PI of that particular award. And if you look at the entire spectrum of MD, PhD students who have these F30 awards, they are about concentrated or distributed in about 70 MD, PhD programs in the country. Now, as I said earlier, most MD, PhD programs offer financial support with stipends throughout the 7 to 9 years duration of training, as well as tuition waivers, meaning we pay for your tuition and we give you a stipend. If you think about it, the reason why these programs are so difficult to get in is that from our standpoint as program directors, we're making an investment of $500,000 on you. And so we really look very carefully at each of our applicants that we accept into each of our programs. Now, the typical curriculum takes about 8 years to complete. In my particular program, for example, 3 students out of 10 will finish in 7 years, 5 students in 8, and 2 students in 9. So it's about the ratio that you're going to find in many of the MD, PhD programs. In general, the way we do this, and this is at my school, but it also in some schools there's a little bit of difference. We do the first 2 years of medical school, it is the basic sciences. So you learn the basic principles of physiology, anatomy, biochemistry, molecular biology, etc. Now, subsequent to that, you do mostly graduate school activities, meaning that you go into a research lab, you do coursework for the PhD that you choose, and typically there is some efficiency in terms of the amount of courses because you might have started with some graduate school courses earlier during the first 2 years of medical school. You might take some rotations during graduate school. For example, in my training, in my program, one of the things that we do is we send students to do for 10 weeks, 1/2 day of clinical. If they are studying cancer biology, for example, they may do the first year adult oncology, the second year pediatric oncology, third year pathology, fourth year radio-oncology. The idea is that we expose you to the clinical phenotype, the clinical specialties. So by the time that you are doing your boot camp in year 6 or 7, and you are moving into the last 2 years of medical school, you really know what is it going to be your specialty. And the reason for that is because early in year 8, September of year 8, you are again submitting applications through a national system to go for residency. And 95% of our graduates, and I'm talking here nationally, go on to do a residency. And so, for example, in the case of the individual that I was talking that was doing perhaps cancer biology for PhD, maybe becoming one of the subspecialties or specialties that I told you about. The PhD is awarded in multiple disciplines. Again, the traditional wet lab disciplines include biochemistry, physiology, pathology, pharmacology, physiology, etc., etc. You know, what matters here is what is that you are interested in. That's the most important aspect. There are some programs that have some non-traditional offerings, such as biomedical engineering, such as human imaging or medical physics, Some may have computational biology or bioinformatics, epidemiology, public health, and some other humanities. You need to look at the programs of each of those locations in order to understand what is the particular offerings of a particular school may offer. Now, what is in for you from a program standpoint? The program is a community. There are many other students alike you, and they are participating in the same quest of becoming clinician scientists. This quest is hard. You have some very good days, some very bad days. Experiments may work on a week, experiments may not work the next week. And you need to have a support system that allows you to move on with your life. You know, many MD, PhD students may have some children or may get married during their studies. It's a 7 to 9 year program. Now, there are visiting scholar seminars. So we bring people who are clinician scientists from other institutions to provide you with other role models. We provide you with retreats where students are able to present their research, because in the end, we're selling ideas. We sell ideas to the NIH, to the study section, to our editors, to our papers, to our peers, to conferences. We need to present information in a way that is convincing and logical. And that's an important component on the training. We have national conferences. There is one conference in particular that happens every year in Keystone. But we also have mentoring, and this mentoring happens at all stages of the process. So I know my students very well. I know how they are doing. I'm there to help them to do the transitions because I went through the same transitions many years ago. Now, I just don't do it by myself, but there is always a community of faculty who are also MD, PhD, who are able to help the students, and every program has that. It's a community, not just a program. Some programs may do activities together. For example, at the UT system programs, the 4 UT system MD, PhD programs got together to have a retreat. We had over 100 MD, PhD students in one room. And so it's a fantastic opportunity to network and have the ability to do activities that are that promote your development. Now, as I said, 90% of the individuals who start, and 95% may end up with going to residency. Residency and fellowship is at 3 to 7 years. You're getting paid through this. You get paid about maybe $60,000 per year. During MD, PhD, you get paid about $26,000 to $28,000. So in some cities that goes very far. In some cities they may need to supplement a little bit. Once you are done with your residency and fellowship, the next piece is you become a medical school faculty. You might go into industry and you get paid about $120,000, $140,000, $160,000 depending about the specialties. Essentially, if you get in an MD, PhD program and you keep doing and you excel the next step and you do well, your life is taken care of. Even if you have already student debt from undergraduate, there's an NIH loan repayment program that if you become a medical school faculty, they actually pay some of your undergraduate student loans. So the entire system is geared for those people whose passion is for becoming clinician scientists, to be able to do what they love to do, which is again, make a bigger impact in discovering of health. Now, this is some of the long-term outcomes Many individuals are in academic medical faculty, some in research institutes like NIH or like the CDC. Some individuals may go into industry. We need all of these individuals. Very few go into private practice. Private practice is not the way to go. It's not a good outcome from an MD PhD program. There are many ways to finance medical school if what you are intending to do is to go into private practice. Now, these are examples of careers in biomedical scientists. I am a neurologist. I'm an epileptologist, so I take care of patients with epilepsy and I do research in epilepsy. I will tell you a little bit more about me at the end of this presentation. But here are examples: pathology, internal medicine. Many of these specialties lend themselves to careers as clinician scientists. So how do you apply to MD PhD programs? Every program is looking for creativity, research, and leadership. Okay? Those are the three things. Yes, indeed, it is important to have academic achievement. But one number doesn't define you. Several numbers might. Okay? So, but one number does not define you. Letters of recommendation from research mentor are very important. I want to see that you are taking ownership on your research. And that's an important piece. It is a plus to have publications or presentations. It's not required. What is required is to have substantial research experience. And each program is going to be looking for a little bit different phenotype of applicant, depending upon what they have in their program. Now, what is substantial research experience? Well, you might start with a summer project. You might go for a senior thesis research. But you might need to do 1 or 2 years of research experience, perhaps at the same time that being an undergrad, perhaps doing 10 hours or so. But you might be a postbac. You might apply to the NIH IRTA program, for example. It is a program at the NIH that recruits very good students, and all programs go to NIH once a year to recruit such excellent applicants because they have been exposed to a very high level of research experiences. But the point here is that you are interested in the scientific method. You are able to describe your hypothesis, your research to an audience. Nationally, there are 5,100 MD PhDs, and only about 35% are women. Okay? So we need to do better there, and that's for certain. And as I said, some programs actually are very able to accommodate women, in particular, allowed to have some career mentors that are women. And so it allows them to understand in a much better way what are the challenges that happen, because they do happen. Now, 12% of the students are of diversity, but diversity is not just ethnic and racial. It is also economic status, disadvantage, able to speak different languages, have been able to travel other places, have volunteered for projects abroad, etc., etc. So it's much more broadly defined. Having said that, we receive monies from the federal government, and so we do need to comply with certain criteria of efforts to recruit individuals with diverse backgrounds. There are about 2,000 MD PhD applicants every year, about 635 MD PhD slots in the nation. Many of these students apply to many programs. Why? Because, we only having 5 slots or 10 slots per school, you have to apply very broadly. But keep in mind that that application process, once you are over that, those schools are going to be investing very large amounts of monies on you. Often they are going to bring you back for second interviews if you are accepted. Often they are going to provide some aspect of travel. Some of them may provide you with hotel during the interviews, but often you might need to interview in about 10 programs or so. Now, numbers are numbers, and here are the numbers. So in 2012, the applicant pool was 1,853. Out of those, the median MCAT or the mean MCAT was 31. The median GPA was 3.6. But look at the ranges, very broad ranges. Look at the matriculants. And 34 is the median, 34.5 is the median MCAT for MD PhD matriculants out of the 635 students. Now, what is important to see is the range. It goes all the way from 23 to 44. It is really a packet. What is important is not just the numbers, is what is your passion? Can you articulate, can you pour your soul into that application, into those essays? Those are very critical aspects. GPA, as you can see, it goes all the way from 2.9 to 4.0, but again, the mean is 3.8. Matriculant is a person that gets accepted and it starts an MD PhD program. So that's a matriculant. Applicant is an individual who applies and completes an application through the AMCAS process. So all of the applications are in AMCAS. Every single MD PhD program is in AMCAS, even those in Texas. In Texas, for medical school, there's a different process called TMD SAS. Now, if you want to be interested also in applying to medical school, you need to apply also in TMD SAS. But all of the MD PhD programs in the entire country are in AMCAS. So one single application for all of them. You just need to select extra schools, and there is a fee for every extra school. Some schools have secondaries, and that may be $60, $70 extra. Some schools like mine do not have a secondary, and so we save you some money there. But in any case, bottom line is those are the applicants. The matriculants are the people who successfully start in an MD PhD program. 90% of the people who start in an MD PhD program graduate with an MD PhD. Out of that 10%, 8, meaning 80% of that 10%, so 8% total, end up with an MD. So pretty much the majority of people who start this process and get into MD PhD program will complete something that is in a medical related field. This is a little bit more broadly describe what the numbers are for individuals who have MCATs, and is bracketed by groups. So in the bottom you have from 3 to 26, from 27 to 29, from 30 to 32, 33 to 35, 36 to 38, and 39 and above. 45 is the maximum, okay, with the current MCAT. What I want to note is that you can be very bright and not get in. You can have a 45 and not get in. What matters is the entire application process, the entire application. Now, you have a very good chance of getting in if you have a high MCAT, but it's not guaranteed. Now, if you have a lower MCAT, even at 27 to 29, 9% get in. Now, those individuals may have very high GPAs, may have some very compelling life experiences. Some individuals may be from a very disadvantaged status. We're looking for individuals who have made the most out of their opportunities. Now, this is GPA, very similar. Many people may have very high GPAs. Yes, it increases your numbers, but you can have a 3.2 and still be able to get into an MD PhD program if you have the life experiences. Now, what is the timeline? So as I said, we apply to AMCAS. You need to take the MCAT the year before enrolling. So the MCAT for next year, for next June, next July, next August, to enter medical school is gone because it ended in September. Generally speaking, we want you to apply early. Applications that apply early, they get looked more carefully because you haven't distributed any of your interview slots. Okay, so it's better to have your things together early on because that's a stronger application to go. You then go for interviews between October to February. You get final decisions in November to March. You do revisits in March to April, and the process is complete by April 30th, when everybody drops to one program. During a portion of time, some people collect acceptances like, Boy Scout badges. Well, that's not cool, honestly. It's not cool or fair to other applicants because that is preventing other applicants from getting accepted. What we are looking for is for you to compare two schools, sleep on them for, with that idea for maybe 2 weeks or a week, and make a decision between those two schools. If you need to do a revisit, go and do a revisit. Ask the program directors, have communication with them. Once you make that type of selection, you might go to the next acceptance, etc., etc. Programs start as early as June with a rotation in a research lab, or they may go starting with medical school as late as August. Again, what do you need to look in? You need to see whether what you are interested is good at that institution. How many faculty are doing the stuff that you like? Many programs, many schools might not be very high in the US News and World Ranking, but they are a top 5 program for X. And that's what you need to look, is that X. If that X happens to be in an unknown school or a not very highly known school, doesn't matter. You're going to get superb training. So the research environment that you are looking for that particular area is very critical. Generally speaking, NIH has training awards for institutions who are very strong at particular areas. For example, in my institution, we have 7 T32 NIH awards for different areas of expertise. We're very strong in those areas. So what you need to see is what happens in each of those institutions. What is the academic environment? How the program runs? What is the level of mentoring that happens? Are the students happy? Are they enthusiastic about doing this? Are they as passionate as you are? Those are the things. Do you fit in that school? Do you see yourself doing well there? You might go to the top of the rankings, but you really don't fit. That's not good. You want to be able to see yourself in that institution. Okay, Now, there's more stuff in the website for the AAMC MD PhD website. Yeah, I'm going to let you have a couple of minutes to write it, or a minute or so to write this, and I'm just going to tell you a little briefly about my program, since I came here under the sponsorship of my deans. So my program is in San Antonio. We're an MD PhD program. We have 35 students. It's a very diverse program, has 5 slots per year. We have, we're relatively young, even though that we started in 1976. In the last 3 years, we have graduated 9 PhD graduates with 4.4 publications per student. Our MD PhD class enrolling in 2013 exceeds national medians. The time to graduation is 3.9 years, exceeding national medians. The types of programs that we have some unique expertise: aging, cancer biology, neuroscience, microbiology, pharmacology, physiology. We also have some unique opportunities, such as radiological sciences, in particular human neuroscience imaging. That's a very specialized type of research that we are among the top in the nation, in the world actually, with 12 Tesla scanners, for example, and the editors-in-chief of the highest impact journal in the area. We also have a biomedical engineering program, and we have a translational science PhD together with UT Austin and UT San Antonio. Now, we have 7 F30 NIH awards. We have 1 F31. We have 2 R01 NIH diversity supplements. 5 other students have other predoctoral training awards. 65% of our students who are in GS2 or above have received individual training awards to them. We do very good mentoring to students. If you rank all programs in the United States by the number of individual training awards, F30s, and you divide them by the size of the MD PhD program, how many students you have, meaning F30 per MD PhD student in the program, we are number 6 out of 110 programs. We have triple number of applicants, triple the number of grants, and we have improved metrics to 97 percentile. This is an example of our annual retreat. Students are presenting posters. This is typical among other MD PhD programs. This is a small talk with a Nobel laureate who is from University of Texas, and had a small discussion with our MD PhD students. We are raising endowments. That's how we pay for this. Texas has endowments, has a lot of money in oil and other areas. And so we are fortunate to be able to use some of those endowments to promote health and improve research. Now I'm going to tell you in 3 minutes or 5 minutes maybe a little bit about my story. So to give you an idea of what is it that you end up being able to do. And it's not really much about me, but the opportunities that I was given. So as a clinical epileptologist, I see patients with epilepsy. In the extreme left, you see somebody having seizures. Often those individuals have a particular injury in their brain MRI, which is called hippocampal sclerosis. And what is in the extreme right is one of my contributions that explains the pathophysiology of temporal lobe epilepsy, one of the most important conditions of one of the most important epilepsies that consumes about 75% of their resources spent in epilepsy. Now, this is an example of how you can do this. This is sustaining. Don't worry about the staining. But what it means is that the brain rewires in a different way in the epilepsy brain, and I can model that in animals. the same thing that I can see in humans. And as a PhD student, I actually published some of these findings, and I subsequently developed the techniques and was able to prove in human patients that that was the case. So I was able to publish this article in Science many years ago. I was subsequently able to develop this and demonstrate that it was a valid endpoint in humans. If you open Candel's Neurobiology, this section, I prepared it as a graduate student. It's there. As a resident, I saw a case and I wrote it up in very early in the development of this medication and published it in the Lancet, and it changed the FDA label of this medication, Imitrex, sumatriptan. So was published back in '94. In 2009, there were 30 million prescriptions of this medication in the United States. The information that I provided and described has a major impact in individuals who are taking this for migraine. In '98, during my fellowship, I looked at some patients and I was thinking about this hippocampus sclerosis thing that I was studying in the lab. I looked at this and put together a case series, and I was able to put together an observation, a series of observations. This led to an NIH R27 trial, who the principal investigator, Darrell Lewis, was one of the co-PIs, that was $50 million, and has now described the original hypothesis that we saw in 12 infants was actually true in 250 individuals who have been recruited for this NIH study. I subsequently also developed my own lab, and I described further plasticity, further ways of how the brain rewires. The brain, you may know that hippocampus is connected in slices, and so the way this hippocampus was connected, I proposed in a paper that it was critical for how the intractability of epilepsy happened. A subsequent paper by another group who read this, a series of neurosurgeons said, well, rather than taking this human hippocampus out, let's slice it. Let's cut these projections. The outcome of those 10 patients was phenomenal. They had less complications, better memory, and had similar efficacy. Right now, there is a clinical trial undergoing, I don't know the results, that is taking those ideas that I developed in the research lab to take new therapies for humans with epilepsy. I also have participated as one of the investigators in drug studies, and I have served in the FDA panels to approve medications. There are 4 level 1 studies in epilepsy. I was one of the co-authors of this study. I also have looked this in development, and I continue to do research in neuroimaging as I'm trying to see this rewiring in vivo. What I want to tell you is this, and I'm closing with these slides. This is a poem from a Spaniard poet by the name of Antonio Machado. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. It's wanderer, there is no path. You need to make your path. And as you walk, you are making this road. So, where are you guys going to walk? That's the real question. Anybody recognizes that? So that's the question. This is a great career, a lot of satisfaction. It's not an easy career, but there's many ways to get in. And the information that I provided you, I hope that is helpful to to you. Thank you. I believe that I can take questions. Go ahead. Anybody? Just go ahead.
So, if you have like publications, is it gonna help with that? With the
So we do look. What we're looking for in applicants is for sustained research experience. If you have depthness in a particular lab, it's fantastic. If you get publications, it increases your likelihood, but it's not required. However, you're going to be a much better candidate if you do that. Follow up, one quick.
So, does it matter if you're a second author or a first author?
It's okay. As an undergraduate, we're not expecting you to be first authors. If you are, that's fantastic. You have a question?
Yes. Why did you choose epilepsy?
Well, I was interested in brain rewiring, and so I was interested in plasticity. I was using animal models of epilepsy. I got more interested in the disease. And so I knew that I wanted to be a neurologist, and so it's one of the diseases that neurologists take care of. And so it just was very nicely aligned with my interest. Yes?
You don't require GRE.
No. Generally speaking, the majority of MD PhD programs do not require GRE. They do require MCAT and GPA. Some programs have some requirements, like you need to have done statistics or so many of these pre-med requirements. That varies from school to school. There's a question on this side? Yes, ma'am.
How do you suggest going about deciding between MD, MD PhD, or PhD?
The question is, if you wanna, MD PhDs are programs are very competitive. So often, some applicants apply to MD PhDs and MDs. Some applicants may have as a default plan, if I don't get into an MD PhD, I'm going to get a PhD, and that's okay. So we look favorably both types of applicants. How do you decide what to do is really a personal choice. And, MD PhDs just happen to be, for me, the best training because it allowed me to see patients and at the same time bridge to science. So that was very important to me. As I said, there are other ways of becoming a biomedical scientist. The advantage of doing it together is that it saves some time and money. It has all this extra community rather than doing the individual efforts by yourself. But sometimes that's the way to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Suppose you were to do an MD and become a doctor and then decide to do a PhD, how would that track take you?
It's a little harder. For example, for imaging in our institution, we're one of the few programs where you can be doing your residency and get a PhD during your residency for neuroimaging. But it is a very competitive program. I believe there's only 2 programs in the nation, and so it's not necessarily as easy. The other aspect that happens often is as you get older, you acquire more responsibilities, family, etc. So the types of risk that you are willing to take beyond the areas that you are doing become smaller, and so you take less risk. The advantage of being an MD PhD applicant is we don't require, we're looking for the best applicants. We're not looking, you may start with as a cancer biologist as an undergrad and may end up doing microbiology or bioinformatics. We are not recruiting you for a particular PhD. We want the best students. And passion for what you do is critical.